Okay, my name is Jun. I am in Usok University, Department of Sports Coaching. Today's presentation titles, my presentation titles is Preserving Olympic Legacies toward constructing and managing an oral history database of Korean Olympians reflections. The next. This is a table of contents. Introduction. The Olympic Games are essential part of modern and contemporary Korean history. The literature on Korea and the Olympics suggests that Korea's participation in the Olympics has interacted dynamically with Korean badge systems or contemporary politics, and that influence of the Olympics reaches beyond sports and into Korea's very political, economic, social, and cultural development. However, this literature often runs into interpretive problems because of the lack of material. Most studies of Korean Olympians confine records with a particular intention and repeat the result produced by the organizing committee. Furthermore, these studies often use sources which examine or express public memories of the Olympics, which produced a very general and singular narrative of Korea's Olympic history in its many forms. These studies demonstrate the problems of the one-sided use of historical material and the limitation of positivism, which have already been pointed out by other Korean sports historians focused on nationalist, tribalist, and materialist discourses focused on economically developed countries, or very limited sports-based focus, such as medal count, breaking records, spectacular and ritual events, and specific star athletes. This study aims to help remedy this situation and improve the prospects for the future study of Korean Olympic history by collecting Korean Olympians and Paralympians oral reflections on participating in the Olympic Games and organizing them into an easily navigable oral history database. Producing such a database would spur future research and more detailed, pluralistic, and nuanced perception of Koreans' participation in the Olympics by creating an oral history archive for public use. This study aims not simply to supplement and expand on Olympics-related materials. It seeks to prepare the conceptual ground from which we can both transmit Korea's Olympic heritage directly by bringing Korean Olympians' memories and reflection to the fore and allow different levels and interpretations of Olympics-related stories to compete with each other in the name of promoting a more rich and nuanced perceptions of Korean Olympic history. The rise of postmodernism has made historians increasingly interested in the idea in the idea that memory is a social construct. By constructing memory as something socially constructed with a sense of purpose rather than of passively remaining past, historians have largely reached the construction's consensus that memory is actively formed through social processes. This interpretation is partly grounded in historians, a growing skepticism of the objectivity and neurality of public records and the pluralizations of society. Indeed, recent studies have increasingly focused on perceptions of different truths, alternatives, relatives, and voices, rather than portraying public or archival records as containing singular truths. In line with these studies, the present studies takes as its starting point that public records managed by those states and public institutions and Olympians' own reflections should both be made public, easily accessible, and for the future basis of studies of Korea's modern and contemporary Olympic history. By creating an oral history database, it hopes to bring the subjective experience of Olympic participants, which has thus been neglected in the literature, to the fore of historical study. It hopes that this will create a more solid foundation for fully and authentically reconstructing Korea's complex Olympic history, with all its nuances and subjectivities. This paper proceeds in the following steps. First, to build such a database, we present our analysis of how other countries have created an organizing oral history database of their own Olympians' reflections. Our review of other databases suggested that we should use a specific methodology to collect, organize, and create a navigable database of oral recordings. Second, we discuss our process for performing oral history interviews by outlining our procedures in detail. We hope to make this study an effective reference tool for other sports historians looking to build similar database. Third, we present our methods and procedures for establishing the database, largely gleaned from archival studies and informatics theory. We hope that database building method and procedures we outline here will both provide material for future historians to study and lay the groundwork for more comprehensive Olympic-related oral record keeping, use, and management by sports-related institutions. In order to enhance the detail and applicability of our findings, we also conducted a literature review and interviews with people involved in the process of creating oral history archives in other regions' contexts. Our literature review examined other oral history materials published in Korea and abroad and analyzed question areas developed by the International Society of Olympic Historians and business plans related to building such a database obtained through visits to related organizations. we interviewed Wayne Wilson, who is in charge of the oral record project for Olympians in Southern California, done by the LA 84 Foundation on January 27, 2016. We interviewed Thomas M. Hunt, our researchers in charge of the 1968 U.S. Olympics Oral History Project. At the H.A. Lucher Center on January 31, 2016, we interviewed Patricia Orlenshaw, a project manager for the Australian Oral History Project for the Disabled. On August 24, 2017, we also interviewed Murray Phillips of the University of Queensland, the head of the Australian Paralympic Oral History Project. On August 30, 2017, these interviews provided many insights regarding the effective collection, organization, measurement, and use of Olympians and Paralympians oral memories, and added much to this study. Chapter 2 is on examining other Olympic oral history database. This section described how we examined several other countries and institutions' experience in building Olympic oral history database. We not only tried to glean the best practice, but also attempted to develop our own means of soliciting oral historical reflections and organizing them into a database which suits and reflects Korea's unique historical context and social and sports related. Chapter 2 contains the following: the International Society of Olympic Historians, the LA 84 Foundation's Olympic Oral History Archives, the H.A. Lucher Star Center's Olympian Oral History Archives, the Australian Paralympic Committee's Oral Recruitment Project. Chapter 3 is collecting Korean Olympians' oral historical reflections. This section explores our process for collecting Korean Olympians' oral historical reflection in some detail. 3.1, selecting our scope and interviews. Figure 1 shows the interviewee selection procedure, and table 2 shows criteria for selecting Olympic issue. (3.2) Developing a Korea-specific question area. 3.3 collecting data, and next 3.4 organizing and categorizing the data. Table 3 shows a list of collected materials. Organizing and categorizing the data is the following. Figure 3, organizing criteria by content. Figure 4, organizing criteria by person. Figure 5 shows organizing criteria by medium. The chapter 4, building a digital oral history archive of Korean Olympians' experiences. The chapter is following: 4.1, general outline. 4.2, database design. Figure 6 shows a schematic illustrations of design, process, and content. You can see first step the two-step or three-step. Number 4.2 is the number 4.21, organizing of basis data and database design format. And number 4.2.6, classification and structured coding of the recorded data. For that 3, building a database, table 5 shows details of the database construction design results. Building a database for that 3.1 tables, post 3.2 shows design the research function. Figure 7 shows entity relationship diagram. The chapter 5 is conclusion. By conclusion, by creating an oral history database of Korean Olympians and Paralympians experiences, this paper hopes to contribute to and improve future efforts to collect, manage, and study the lived memories and experiences of Koreans in international sports. Our database is detailed in multimedia structure will allow people to see, hear, read, feel, and sympathize with vivid historical figures and patterns. It will help people reflect upon how the Olympics are remembered and historicized not only by official institutions and agencies, but within the bodies, the minds, and the lives of the Olympians themselves. This study was conducted in 3 stages over 3 years. First, it conducted preliminary research on Korean Olympians and other national Olympic oral history projects. And second, it conducted interviews with 102 Olympians and collected various forms of relevant data. Third, it constructed this data into a dynamic and user-friendly database. Figure 8 shows how the database enables users to perform basic searches and more complex browser searches. As discussed above, our database can be found on the website of Korean Research Memory Project. The KRAM is supported by the National Research Foundation of Korea. It provides data, Olympic research, and sports history research. Figure 8 shows Korean Olympian Digital Oral History Archive. The study contributes to the literature by both building an oral history database and describing the various processes and methods involved in building such a database. It also contributes to the literature in the following ways. First, it will give researchers in the Korean context of an opportunity to study personal reflection and avoid using the official historical materials that they have traditionally used to study the Olympics. Second, and related, it will help researchers move their focus away from achievement in international competition and toward a more robust and comprehensive understanding of the Olympics' historical significance in the Korean context and other contexts. Third, it makes important historical materials widely accessible to the public and might help spawn educational effort or curriculum project. Hopefully, this accessibility will bring with its own general awareness of the social constructed nature of memory, and offer research for teaching critical thinking. This project ultimately contributes to more diverse, nuanced, and intimate portrayal of the Olympics' influence on Korean history, culture, and social life. It hopes to produce more balanced and future-oriented historical awareness with Korea and elevate the position of sports history in the study of Korean history generally. It also hopes to raise awareness of the contributions Korean people with disabilities have made to Korean and international sports by increasing the direction of Paralympics alongside those of Olympians. We also hope that this project multimedia archive can help produce high quality cultural content and creative, derivative economic badge. Thank you for listening my presentation.